welcome to the PPW podcast. As always, bringing you news, views, and interviews from the world of real estate online marketplaces and prop tech industries. We are joined by Simon Baker, the Formula One skeptic based in Monaco. Simon, how are you doing this morning?
I'm very well. I'm not a Formula One skeptic. I do like my Formula One just on TV.
And today's very special guest, it's Greg Bader, CEO at rent.com.au. Greg, how are you doing? 5 p.m. in Australia, coming up to the end of the workday?
Yeah, and another sunny day as well. We're about to hit winter, so it was only about 28 today. So
Oh,
there you
beautiful.
go.
I'm in Madrid, and we're just coming from about 22, 23, and we're going to be hitting 30 soon. So looking forward to the summer months. But enough about the weather. Let's get into rent.com.au. For our listeners who maybe don't know who you are, can you just give us a quick overview of the business, the model, where you make your money, and how the company's doing?
So rent.com.au. So we, as the name implies, we're rentals only. We're a portal. In Australia, we have a duopoly structure with realestate.com.au. I'm sure your listeners are well aware of. And Domain, they occupy number 1 and 2. Quite a bit of daylight between the two. REA is leaps ahead of everybody else. We sit around 3 or 4 in terms of the portal food chain, depending on how you count it. Because we're rentals only, we don't have the volume of sales listings, of course. But if I look at web stats, dwell time, page views, bounces, we're up there as 3 or 4 in the list. So that's where we sit. We don't monetize on the agent side. We don't charge for listings. We have some upgrade options, but most of our revenue comes from the consumer side. 2 reasons for that. One is it's necessary because real estate agents surprisingly or begrudgingly will pay number 1 and maybe pay a bit of number 2, but they won't pay 3, 4, 5, 6. We are a pretty small market at the end of the day, and most portals have most listings, so there's a lot of overlap. So we monetize on the front end to the consumers. Our business faces the consumers. We're advocates for renting. Australia's unique in the world, and not necessarily in a good way, with our fascination of property. And Simon has more experience than I do in this, but the older mentality of home ownership as your only vehicle to grow wealth is still quite ingrained. And renting has always been considered as somehow a secondary choice, or you've made bad choices, and that's why you are renting. The truth is it's changing. We're about 32% of our population rent now. The biggest group of renters in Australia are what we call our metro techs. They're professional, well-educated, typically within 10 to 15 Ks of the CBD. They're renting because it makes sense for them right now. They're not established career-wise, relationship-wise, location-wise yet to be confident be able to put down, a lot of money on a property and lose the flexibility that their current lifestyle is offering. So it is actually changing quite a lot. And I guess we gear towards that. The 65% of our renter customers are under the age of 45. We do about 700 UVs a month. Doesn't sound a lot in a global sense, but there's only about 55,000 rentals available in Australia today. So our traffic to listing volumes are quite good. So we monetize on that side. We sell product that helps people get into houses. We're the largest provider of bond finance. We do ID verification, utility partnerships, those sort of things, and then advertising. And our advertising is a little bit different to normal advertising. We work with partners. We do things like per property 5G lookups for availability, product placement in the right space. We partner with utilities, etc. So I guess some of this is pretty common around the world in the portal space, and I think some of it's got a bit of a local unique flavour as well. So it's kind of a quick summary of our portal business.
So I got a question. So rent.com.au started, if I remember correctly, must have been 15 or so years ago, maybe a bit longer. And how has the model changed over the years? What sort of the lessons learned in that time frame?
It's interesting. The 2 big lessons I think, and I don't necessarily believe I'm right on this, but it's what I think. When the business was originally founded, the assumption would be that agencies would pay to list on us, and happy days. As I said earlier, I think 2 things have changed in the market. There's a lot more people in the market now, so agencies aren't going to pay to list on 50 different portals. The other thing too is that rentals are still seen as kind of the secondary listing. The primary listing is on the sales side. And I think REA published last week they're pulling about $4,000 ARPU per property per listing. So the money, if you like, is all on the sales side. And it makes sense, right? Because that's the big expense of the seller. I get all that. Makes sense. The other thing was that we were really going to go after the landlord market as well, so the private landlord market. The original business assumptions 10 years ago, well, that represented about 50% of the market. I think the reality of it is that that probably represents closer to 10% of the market. And there's probably another 10% that I would call the hidden or the unofficial renting market, which is people that are renting to people on a handshake that are either friends, family, etc. So the vast majority of property listings in Australia are still managed by property managers, real estate agencies. So they were two things that kind of forced a bit of a change in our business. We made the decision to pivot renters, and that doesn't mean at the expense of agents. Agencies are still a key partner of us, but a lot of the features and functions we offer are renter specific. So, for example, we do walkability on every property listing because it's important to, if you don't have a car or you're sharing and you only got one car park, etc. So we overlay a lot of features that renters find important. Lifestyle of the suburb. Is it pubs and clubs or is it parks? Is it best for families? Is it best for singles? Those sort of things.
Okay, so your focus is very much on the renter in this whole process. Giving them the best search experience possible. The walkability and so on. I think which is an essential part of what you need to do. And then you monetize it via a range of tools and products and services, primarily for the renter, to help them get into the property. Not just faster, just get into the property because it's such high demand and low supply.
That's correct. So the products that do well for us are ones that help people get into a house. Globally, we're seeing this in every country, but just for everybody's interest, we're about 1% vacancy rate nationally. In certain cities, Perth in Western Australia and Queensland and Brisbane in Queensland, we've been around 0.6% for the last 2 years. It is literally diabolical out there if you're trying to find a property. And to the point where, some of the real estate agencies are needing to get mental health support for their property managers just because of the stress involved in selecting and managing clients. The days of, 5 people rocking up for a property and maybe one being a standout and 2 okay and 2 no have changed. Now we get 20 people rocking up that are all fantastic. So it's really a stressful time on both ends of both stakeholder groups.
Okay. So when you think about let's change this a little bit. I'm curious about technology and AI in particular and how that sort of relates to what you're doing. How do you think about applying AI type technology to your business?
So we do it in a couple of ways. So the boring way is we use it to manage our customer service channels. So we're one of the only portals you can actually pick up and ring someone. And we're quite proud of that and we manage that. But if someone's ringing up to ask us what the weather in Melbourne is, we run that through an AI filter, if you like. So it allows us to answer the calls that are important. The other part we're doing is, and we launched this on our app. Now, our apps are the highest rated real estate apps in the country, so we're quite proud of them. But in our app, we have a lifestyle search. So in Australia, and to be honest, around the world, the way we look for a property is largely governed by how REA told us to start looking for a property. I mean, REA still is today by far the most dominant. So people put in a postcode, a town, or etc. What we see changing is people now searching on other metrics, and especially around lifestyle. So in our app, 20% of the customers now search via lifestyle choices. And it started off quite simply as, I want to live in suburb A, but it's a bit out of my price range. Hey, suburb B meets all your similar criteria in terms of lifestyle. But I think where that'll go is even further into it can, there's much more complicated and sophisticated pattern and where you're searching and here's something interesting. But I think we'll get to a point where someone will simply type in prompts and looks and it'll start matching properties based on that. The reality of it is we're looking at it. We haven't invested heavily in it because the reality of Australia right now is people will take any bloody property where they can because there's just not enough. So people are well outside their traditional boundaries, if you like, in terms of location, price point, size. People are literally just taking what they can get. So summary is, I guess, that yes, it'll come for sure, and we're seeing bits of it. It's just, where can we best position it to help the consumer get into that right property? And look, we've done so much research on, our whole ethos is a better informed tenant is going to be a better tenant.
Yep. So I'm curious about that, right? Your comment you said before about historically 1 out of 5 was sort of the tenant you want. Now it's 10, 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5. It's now ridiculous. And is that because the tenants themselves are better prepared at presenting themselves? So it's almost like it's like going for a job interview. You've got to have a great resume. You've got to look the part. You've got to make sure that people have confidence you're going to pay, that it's going to be an easy trip for them. Is that what's happening today?
There's a bit of everything. There's more people per property simply looking, so there's going to be more better prepared ones. But yes, I mean, the people are starting to understand that it is a commercial transaction. You need to remove the emotion out of it, present yourself in the best possible light, build those relationships with the agents if you've got that opportunity. So we've always had, probably shouldn't say this, but it's never really been a completely fair playing field anyway. There are always some segments of the population that are going to have an easier path into a property than others. And so people...
But how is that? How do they get that easier path? Is it because they've got good guarantors? It's who the parents know? Or what's the route?
Look, there is... I mean, at the end of the day, we're dealing with people. Property managers are people. So everybody has an inherent bias. There are certainly, age comes into it as well. Some property managers don't really want 5 single blokes living in a house. Other property managers don't want elderly people living in a house. It comes into single versus married, old, young. Language comes into it. There are some suburbs that are really suited. Getting himself in trouble here, and I don't mean it like that. But there are some suburbs that the local community is specifically one nationality or one language, so they'll preference people there. You've got some landlords that have preferences. So in general, people are better prepared. But the big one is there are just simply more people looking. So statistically, when there was 5 people rocking up and you had one standout, we're now getting 60 people rocking up, and there's going to be 10 standouts. So it's just the state of the nation. I mean, we had our federal budget last night in Australia. Housing is the number one challenge, I guess. The federal government's promised to build over 200,000 homes in the next 5 years. They've only just started and they're behind. There's just simply not enough stock in the country. We've seen social housing under government ownership completely diminish over the last 10 or 15 years. And that's just no specific flavour of government blame for that. It's been continuous. And we've seen through COVID and whatnot, just construction slow right down. We're also running record immigration. Now, I don't think immigration is a primary cause in Australia, but what we're also finding is a lot of expats returning to Australia. We're finding people wanting their own places. Saw that a lot over COVID. We've just got a whole compounding number of issues. We've got real labour shortages in our construction industry. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why we're low on the supply side. Low on the supply side means prices are going up. Low on the supply side means there's just more and more people looking for property.
Okay.
I'd like to pivot slightly. Let's accelerate this process. So you've found a tenant, somebody's moved in. One of the great things about rent.com.au is the rent pay product. It's driving a lot of revenues for you. You achieved good revenue growth in recent filings. So could we have a quick look at the rent pay product, Greg? Can you tell us about its beginnings, how it's grown over time, and for somebody who'd maybe want to build something similar in their own portal, what kind of learnings and takeaways can we take from rent pay, which seems to be growing in popularity and growing in financial success as well?
It is. And look, I'll preface this by saying we're probably a little bit naive going in, but maybe that's what you need to do to actually have a crack at some things. For us, the driver was with our rental portal, we see a person for about 4 to 6 weeks. They come in, do their business, and then they disappear for 30 months, which is the average lease tenure. So, and you can see that in our traffic stats. So someone like REA has around 20%, 25% new users each month. We're at 75%. And it's the nature of our business, nature of renting. So we wanted a vehicle, or we wanted a method to maintain a longer relationship with the consumer. So rental payments seemed like a logical choice. The market in Australia is quite fragmented. There is certainly a number of competitors out there. All of them operate on what we call the agent side. So they build a product for a real estate agent, sell their service to a real estate agent. The real estate agent then encourages tenants to use the product. We wanted to be a little bit different, and once again, with our consumer focus as well. So RentPay is the first in market dual-sided. So we can sign up an agency and the agency can push it out to the tenants, or a tenancy can sign up and we'll operate transparently to an agency. So about 25% of our customers come in what we call off the street or direct, and then the remainder are through agency agreements. And that's our focus at the moment, is growth. Big chunky growth obviously comes with bringing on agencies and bringing across rent rolls, and consistent growth comes through the front end with consumers. So to do that, we needed to add value. And we do that. We started off, we're kind of technical background. So we started off, I guess, in that area. We wanted to build flexibility so we wanted the tenant to have the ability to take control from a time and value point of view. So if the agent wants the rent all paid on the first of the month, we allow the tenant to choose their own schedule, pay us when they like. We find the biggest use of that is people synchronising it to payday. It's the biggest expense, helps with their budgeting, etc. We then hold the funds and the agent gets instant payment on the day that it was due. So from an agent point of view, it works well. So that was time and value shifting. We then started building in a number of, I guess, adjacent products to it as well. During COVID, we had an issue with a lot of casual employees were getting cut their hours, etc. So they were struggling. So we built in a whole buffering capability, so you can pay a little bit extra. It's quite graphical in nature. You can see you're 1 week ahead, 2 weeks ahead, and if you got no income 1 week, you can still pay your rent. We then have score building functionality as well. Paying your rent regularly, we can positively incrementally report on your credit score. We do payment choice was a big one. A lot of the existing incumbent platforms simply didn't allow people choice, so we now do all the normal raft of instant payments, etc. With the lowest in marketing credit cards. In fact, half the people that join us off the street are choosing to use a credit card to pay their rent. We're at 0.99%. So people are obviously doing the credit cards for convenience, but also points hacking, etc. A month or so ago, we launched Alipay, WeChat Pay, etc. That was built. We have a large international student population in Australia, so that was quite interesting. And I've got to be honest, I'm not a big user of those platforms, but what I do know is they are immensely immersive type platforms. You use them for everything from chatting with the family to shopping, etc. So by allowing those customers to operate in Australia and pay their rent in Australian dollars through our platform, but still maintain those platforms as active and pull money from their home accounts, etc. So that's really interesting. We're starting to get a little bit of traction through that one as well. And then we offer rewards, and we've done a few interesting deals, and one that I think's really powerful, especially UK, etc., would be an arrangement we've made with our biggest utility provider in Australia. In Australia, typically you consume utilities for 3 months and then you get 30 days to pay. And that's the cycle we operate on. So we went to the utility provider and said, well, look, the problem with that is our customers are getting these bloody big bills at the end of it. Your default rates, you're chasing arrears, all that is costing you money. So how about we get our customers to pay a little bit towards their bill each rental cycle, and then we will reward them for doing that. So we've got some funny tools, to calculate what your future usage is going to be based on household and all that. But what we ended up getting to a point where is the utility provider is now rebating us around $260 a year or $5 a week off your rent simply by part paying your bills. So you cannot consume electricity in this country now cheaper than how we're doing it. So that was a huge win. And so there's things like that we're trying to do. I guess what we're trying to do here is put your rent money to work, and we want you to end your renting cycle, whether that's 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, in a better financial position than when you started. So that's kind of our goal, what we're trying to achieve. And our next range of products are going to take that, I guess, to the next level.
I got a slight first. Well, two questions actually. So, do you see yourself as an advertising business, a prop tech business, a fintech business? How do you position yourself?
Look, I'll be honest. We're probably spread a bit too thin. So certainly our rental portal is a focus for us, and that is, I mean, half our revenue comes from advertising, and obviously there's listings on there. So I guess, in the truest sense of the word, it's a classified marketplace. The big one though is, and I know it sounds a little corny, but we are trying to improve the lot of renting. So we call them our renter army, our customers. So we participate in reviews, various state governments reviewing the Tenancy Act, etc. We have some strong views on what can be done to help renting. We're not rabid left or rabid right. We believe it's a commercial transaction, and uniquely in Australia, about 90% of our stock, of our rental stock in this country, is single mum and dad investors, or mum and dad investors owning one or two properties. So we've got to take that into account as well. And there's always an argument, especially around budget time, around some of the incentives landlords are given versus the prices they're charging, etc. So we try and take a fairly neutral position, but we are pro-renting. So the move into the prop tech space now, so we're not a true fintech in that sense, but we're a prop tech with our mission is to just make renting easier and simpler, and just bundle as much value in there for the consumer as we can.
Can we? I'm going to dive onto another topic.
Yep.
Being listed as a micro cap.
That's tough.
How much of a headache is that?
Look, I'm worried whatever I say is going to appear like the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. But I personally find it pretty tough. And a lot of that's to do with probably me, and a lot of that's to do with the history of our business. But we are, our core rent.com.au business is profitable, and we're ASX listed as profitable. But it's not at the scale that's was ever going to be exciting and probably warranted being listed on the ASX. The investment we've made into RentPay does have the opportunity to change our business. I mean, if we can get it to 10% of the renters in Australia using our platform, we're a $500 million business. So that is our real growth opportunity, I believe. The challenge of being listed, it is really tough. We, especially when you start getting into anything that doesn't involve iron ore or lithium, prop tech and fintech in Western Australia, or even in Australia generally, we don't really have the depth in the market. We have a lot of little guys, fewer big guys. We have a couple of big international guys. So yeah, it's really tough. I'm lucky that we've got really supportive shareholders. We are fairly tightly held business. We need to raise capital. That's equal parts exciting and equal parts frustrating. In another life, I wish we had have been similar to, I guess, some of the larger American models where you raise a whole bunch of cash and then off you go and do your business. We've tended to do it in dribs and drabs, which I'm not suggesting is the right way.
That's the Australian market way. I mean, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and look, Simon, you've been through that. You've successfully listed and delisted and sold. So, I mean, the struggles we have, but it is really tough. And I think what's happening, and I don't know if it's a function of me getting older, frustrated, wiser, probably a combination of everything, but I'm starting to realise that to achieve my outcome of having an influence on the market and providing that outcome for tenants that we're chasing, I'm probably doing it under all of my own steam is probably the longer path, whereas partnerships and JVs and even through to equity and I think are probably going to be more realistic options. So in the last company I worked at before I came here, we did 35 acquisitions in 3 years. We saw it as a business and as an industry, it was seen as a viable, logical way to scale quickly to get those savings. I don't think that's quite the same mentality yet in PropTech and FinTech because, We have a lot of little guys that offer semi-competitive, semi-complementary, and all of us have probably substantially changed the world. The big advantage I have is I have one of Australia's largest consumer channels bolted to me in rent.com.au. So that is our primary feed of customers, obviously, but still I have the same staffing and capital restrictions. I mean, we're only 20 odd staff. We get approached about RentPay taking it international. We get and they're all great ideas, but we just don't have the resource capacity to do a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
So let's explore a bit more. It's a micro cap. I think I was just checking before. It's sort of sub $20 million. Part of that, I guess, is driven from what I can see, and I might be wrong, but revenues have been flat for a few years. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so rent.com.au revenues, I would fair to say fairly flat. RentPay is growing up behind it, but it's not at the size yet of rent.com.au. I mean, we had our biggest quarter ever last quarter, and we're up around, I forget the exact number, but we're up around, I think about 15% of our revenue is derived from RentPay, and RentPay is important to me because it's that annuity style revenue versus the sell on Monday, sell on Tuesday type stuff. In terms of RentPay, we've doubled in 12 months. We've just hit 250 mil paid through RentPay, and we're doing about 4 mil a week. So RentPay is actually getting some good growth. So we're getting there. Longer than I would like. You know, we're targeting 20, 25 customers this year. We've got some great conversations going with some of the larger real estate agencies in Australia. I think we'll get there. It's just bloody hard work.
Understand. Now then let's if we think about acquisitions, and clearly you're not going to tell me, hey, I'm talking to such and such and I'm going to acquire. It's the reason I asked before, are you sort of prop tech, fintech, whatever, because if you depending on how you think about the business and the future, your acquisition paths can diverse. You can go down a path of a fintech play, sort of fintech in prop tech, like a Relo or whatever it is, right? That's getting into more of these financing type products, but maybe in the for sale space versus in the rental space, and then really pushing on that prop tech fintech barrier crossover. You can then go further into fintech, insurance products and so on for renters, or you can then go more on the prop tech side, more detailed systems and processes for the rental market. How do you, at a broad level, think about that strategically?
Yeah, so straight up, we're consumer fintech is where our future is. So we have an audience, we have a customer base that is comprised of renters. There's a bunch of commercial products that suit that audience, and that's what we're developing. The next, but I don't think it's always as black and white as that. So the next future product for us that we're working through at the moment is around what we're calling our mortgage simulator. So we've got someone paying $2,000 a month in rent. If they pay me $3,000, how do I take that $1,000, get them a decent return on it? They're now demonstrating serviceability of what equates to a $500,000 loan. They'll grow their deposit over a couple of years. We can walk them into a property. So that's kind of where I see it going. I take your point, Simon, and I don't know the answer in terms of pure fin versus prop tech, but certainly we are hybrid. But investing in better CRMs for real estate agents is just not going to be our future. I mean, it's interesting with RentPay. Harvey and I were chatting about it earlier. RentPay is seeing a 50% reduction in arrears on agencies that use RentPay. And so we can see this not only before and after, but we can see this with agencies that have half their rent roll on us and half not on us yet because we're in the migration process. So that is a huge saving, both in time, energy, air, blah, blah, blah. So there's a bunch of features and value in RentPay for real estate agents. Now, we've just a silver partner of MRI. So we've chosen to partner with MRI. A lot of our customers use Property Tree. So integrating into larger platforms, specifically in the prop tech space, I think is with somewhat of my scale and capacity, is a much more sensible path.
Yeah, I was thinking, if you are a consumer focused business and I get introduced to you through, a certificate, what do you call it, a renter verification type product. I then sort of move into a property, and then you offer me all these other products to basically streamline, my finances, help me mismanage my finances less. Right? So everyone is happy in the outcome. I can maybe get a slight discount on my electricity bill and so on. You're now building up a profile of me as an individual and my sort of trustworthiness, because I would assume that a fair number of the people who are renters are aspirant buyers.
Interesting view, and I agree. So the data, the knowledge we'll have of our customer. So roll forward 12 months' time, our customer will walk into the bank. They'll be able to demonstrate that they've been paying the equivalent of a X dollar mortgage for the last 3 years. They've built their deposit. They've had no arrears. They're gold star tick. When my customer walks into that bank will be removing the need for LMI. They'll be offering them a discount. So that's where we can start to really, I guess, we call it data. It's really the customer history, and then presenting that in a fashion that lowers the risk for the lender, and then the lender rewarding the customer for some of that risk. So there are models in here where everybody benefits, and it's simply by being able to collate and accurately show and demonstrate the quality of these people. So I think there's a whole bunch of stuff around that. And they're the sort of things we're working on.
But I think I was actually thinking of maybe taking it a bit deeper, where I think there might be high value, where AI can actually be your co-pilot, or you become the renter to owner co-pilot, is not only, hey, you're walking into a bank and here's the history, and so with the approval of the tenant, surely you can approach the banks, negotiate a loan and identities for them based on, because you know what they've been living in, so you know what they're probably comfortable with, get a bit more data about who they are, and you match it all together. You could actually, I could receive an email or a WhatsApp or a WeChat or something, right? Pops up and goes, Simon, why don't you convert your rental into ownership? And here are 5 properties that you are pre-approved by the bank to move in, figuratively tomorrow. Okay, and I just go click.
Understand a couple of I guess different takes on that one. So last year was the first year that broker originated mortgages in Australia exceeded direct. So brokers are playing a big part in our market. Brokers, especially for younger people, because they're the ones that are going to help steer you through all the first homeowner incentives and all that. So joining those together. So now I've got my history. Now I've got some maths on what my opportunities are from discounts, rebates and all that. We've then obviously got properties that fit your lifestyle categories, because we know where you've been living. We know what really motivates you, and then matching. So at the end of the day, though, it's still sophisticated property matching. I'm not diminishing its importance by any means. But yeah, that's where I see the market going.
Because I like the idea. Because I think I have 3 20-year-olds, and there's some common characteristics among them. One is impatience. Okay, 2 is impatience, and you can understand what the 3rd is. Okay, they are highly impatient. They don't have and problem solving, I think, is a key issue as well with the younger generation. And they sort of, and actually the other thing which I think plays to your advantage is that they almost take as gospel what gets spat out of the iPhone or the computer, as they don't even challenge it. It's like, that's the fact, right? Even though it could be fundamentally wrong. Okay. And I would think that if you had a product that said, hey, 25-year-old renter, I know the following about you, your history, the amount you pay, the amount you earn, blah, 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 the capacity. B, I've walked in, I've gone to these 5 brokers, and I've lined up the following 5 deals for you. I've already told you, these are the best ones. I'm going to rate them from numbers 1 to number 5. And you're pre-approved for them all. Okay? It's all done. So you don't have to do anything, right? lazy, people who are like, they want it immediately, and so on. And by the way, I've also identified these 6 houses that have just come onto the market that you can actually walk in and apply the loan to. Okay. Click here to proceed.
Yeah. So understand it's all doable. Certainly the first half, joining to the house is interesting because, as you know, the buying a house is normally there's a catalyst for other life changes. So you were doing it without user input based on previous tenancies. One better, do I want to buy one better, sort of thing. So yes, the answer is yes. Certainly on the broker, matching mortgages, discounts. I expect my tenant to be able to, well, I'll be demanding. My tenant will be walking into a bank getting something better than the market because they're a lower risk consumer for the bank.
Yes. So how do you then create a club? Gold Star membership of real estate. What was that? Sorry, rent.com.au.
Rent.com.au.
Sorry, Freudian slip there. How do you?
But it's yes, we're looking at that, and we would love to do that. Bigger organisations than me haven't been able to do that yet. I think we probably underestimate a bit of apathy there, but I think RentPay actually has that opportunity because with portals, and as great as REA is, and I do love the business. As great as REA is, it's a tool I use. I don't necessarily feel like I've got a relationship with them. I mean, they can send me property alerts and all that, blah, blah, blah. But the RentPay, we're dealing with you every week or every fortnight. We're moving with you, so portability. We're offering new features, functions. People are now they're saving rent by their utilities. They're saving rent through discount vouchers, all that sort of. So we're actually starting to build that up. We'll be moving next. Our next roadmap is clear on recognition as well. So starting to put in some tiers and when certain milestones are at certain levels, and then obviously the whole mortgage simulator. And it'll be a great little, even if people don't actively save with us, it's a great education tool. And you hit the nail on the head. People want something, they're not going to read pages, right? They want simple, intuitive, graphical based. So type in what I'm paying in rent. Even the simple is I'm paying $2,000 in rent. What does that equate to in the mortgage? Right? What if I build my deposit up to this? Okay, these are the properties available to me. All of those things are there. It's anything we can do to actually help people into a house is hugely important. But even just reminding and jogging people's memory that this is a path that you could choose, and there's some steps you can do now that will make that journey easier in the future, are important as well. So they're all things that are on the roadmap.
One question from me, Greg. I'm appreciative of the time, so I won't keep you for much longer. But there's a really interesting angle in there, which is where do you find the balance, the compromise between the need for commercial growth and revenue as a publicly listed company, but also really staying true to the values and the mission of the business in terms of building relationships with people? As a CEO, how do you deal with the strategizing behind that and making sure that you're balancing the two and making sure that you're keeping them pretty much steady, but at the same time achieving both at the same time?
It's a good question, and I don't know. I've grown up in consumer businesses. Customer service is everything. I mean, I think that solves. If you look after the customer and do the right thing by the customer, ultimately the rest sorts itself out. Now, being listed, I have quarterly reporting. I've got to show growth, momentum. I've got shareholders that, most are rational and long-term supporters of the business. But we get, we're traded on the ASX, so we get other shareholders that come in and their money didn't double overnight. So what the hell's going on? So you just got to balance it and stay true to you. There are other businesses out there that are ruthless, money focused, and that's what they do. We are known for our consumer facing and consumer support, and I want to be known for that. And a lot of our staff are here because that we get calls in every day of people in a lot of stress, just trying to find that property. So there's, we do what we can, and there's a lot of sense. I mean, we had a great review the other day of a young lady that was a RentPay customer, and the fact that we were incrementing her credit score actually got her into a property. And that's fantastic. Now, for UK listeners, I know you can do that already. In Australia, credit reporting is still not huge, and it's very much stick approach rather than carrot. So we've had to craft up through a line of credit and blah blah, to make the product functional and regulatory wise everything's proper. But just little things like that. So the feedback from customers is everything. And as I said, I truly believe that RentPay as a platform is unique in Australia. The features inside it are either commercially or technically unique as well. We've just got to put that in front of more people, and it'll sort itself out. It's the fact that I can walk into a real estate agent and say, "I'll lower your arrears by 50%," and by the way, 25% of the people that are joining our platform are joining off the street because they want all the features that you're about to offer your customers anyway. We've got some diabolical platforms in Australia. We've got one of them that's charging a variable rate for direct debit, for God's sake. Doing the right thing by the consumer, I ultimately believe, does the right thing by the business. I've got to manage the patience of my board and the patience of my shareholders. If I'm not here tomorrow, you know that patience has run out.
Yeah, you have a very interesting task, having been chairman of I've lost track, 4, maybe 5 ASX listed companies. The market is a fickle beast.
Yeah, and our share price went up and down 10% the last 3 days in a row on trades of a couple $100. So
yeah, no, you got to ignore that because
it's tough, but it's no tougher for anybody else out there, right? Every day we lose a prop tech or a fintech in Australia, shut down. We lost one this week, actually, a great platform with open networks, the open negotiation, sorry. And every day we get a new one start up. And out of all the new ones that start up, I'm on the prop tech council in one of the states here. And every, out of the 10 that start up, you look at them and maybe quite a few of them are a bit, well, that's a weird idea. But then there's always a couple that are just, holy shit, this is the best thing I've ever heard of. And not all of them survive. Maybe it's just meant to be that way. But yeah, look, stronger market, better support, some collaboration, some M&A, some JV, joining two companies together to make, 1 + 1 = 3. I think that's how I'm going to scale quickly over the next year or so.
Yeah, so some selectively, apart from the organic growth and focusing on the consumer finance angle, it's also maybe some selective acquisitions.
And just general brand awareness. The people I'm speaking to today, large multi-billion-dollar organisations around product opportunities and whatnot, we couldn't speak to a year ago. We do conferences. We've only just started doing conferences. We did one 2 weeks ago where when we did that same conference a year ago, the first question was, who the hell is RentPay? Never heard of you. Now the conversation is, I've heard of RentPay. Can we have a chat? So that stuff takes time. I'd love it all to be done tomorrow, but we're going. I think with 25 staff, $20 million business, operating the largest rental portal, top-rated rental portal, or top-rated portal, full stop, and up against giant gorillas that are. REA is world renowned for their capability and their quality. So up against people like that to be on the same list as them is pretty cool as well, to be honest.
That's 45 minutes on the dot. I don't believe it. So perfect timing, Greg. Great way to finish out the podcast. Really appreciate your time, mate. That was a fascinating conversation, and I'm sure Simon will agree with me.
Yes, I agree with you, Harvey. Thank you, Greg.
Hopefully it was okay. I do prattle on a bit, but I tell you what, if I could click my fingers and be private tomorrow or get swallowed up and just allowed to finish our mission with a bit of support, Jesus, I'd bloody do it.
Who knows? Maybe when this podcast comes out, you'll get a couple of emails and phone calls coming in, eh? So for now, Greg Bader, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Cheers.
Great. Thanks, Greg.
And Simon, see you next time.
Oh, yes, I'll be here.
Okay.
Thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.